Okay.
Okay, so we'll just chill for a bit.
Yeah, we're gonna wait just a couple minutes to see who hops on or off. Maybe just a minute. Tired teenage boy.
With watery eyes.
Yeah.
That hurt.
Alright, go ahead and sit up.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we are live with my youngest son, Garrett. This is Jackie Folks with Awesome Talk. Thank you for tuning in. If you're not able to tune in with us, then thank you for being a replay viewer. We are earlier than we usually go on because Garrett was in Colorado last week with his brother, and now he has to work. So we had to go on earlier than usual, so we might be down some viewers, Garrett, because it's the middle of the day.
Yeah.
But people might be popping on asking you questions, and if they do, we'll address them. And your job is to just be as honest as possible so people can learn from your experience, and you don't have to worry about hurting my feelings, Ethan's feelings, Dad's feelings, anybody's feelings. This whole segment is about you and your feelings, and that's all that matters. And you telling your story. So nothing you say is going to offend anybody. We talked about this before we went on camera.
Yeah.
So I guess first off, maybe just introduce yourself and say just kind of what, I guess let's start at the beginning. Introduce yourself and say what it was like maybe when you were little, some of your earliest memories of because you have the experience of being a baby when Ethan was diagnosed, and then growing up as the younger sibling who surpassed his older brother.
Mm-hmm.
So just start talking. People might pop in. You'll see right up here. But
Hey, Meredith.
yeah, just again, just know that nothing you say is going to be wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So, and we're alone. Nobody's listening, so you can just start going.
Well, first off, I'm Garrett Folks,
And
and
loud.
I am Ethan's youngest brother, the youngest of the bunch, and growing up with a older sibling who had autism, and growing to surpass him in things in life, it was different from what other kids had to grow up with. Like, things in our house would be a lot more difficult than at our friend's house, and like I would go to a friend's house and it would just be simple. We could be downstairs, we could just goof off. But if I had friends over, it would be constant. Ethan would come downstairs and Ethan would make noises. Ethan would stomp around the house because he's playing his games. And at the time, it was annoying because I was with my friends and we wanted to do what we wanted to do. We wanted to talk about what we wanted and not get interrupted by constant stomping, Ethan bugging us, trying to hang out with us. And at the time, it was hard for me to understand that he was different and he wouldn't have friends. He would have me and Brett. And at the time, I just didn't understand that, and it was different.
No, that's true. And I remember one time you told Ethan, get your own friends, because you were little and you didn't understand. You truly, truly did not understand. Like, well, I have my own friends. Why doesn't he have his own friends? And so, while us as a family was teaching about autism and trying to deal with Ethan, you were trying to learn, but as somebody who was little, and your perception a lot of time was like, well, I can do it.
Mm-hmm.
Why, and Brett can do it. Why can't my other big brother do it? And things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Was that hard for you?
Was it hard just doing stuff Ethan couldn't? Or?
Yeah. As 2.5 years younger than him.
I would say so, because it would be, as you said, Brett and I would be able to do something, but Ethan wouldn't. Like, Brett and I would pick up our toys in the toy room, and Ethan would be dragging more toys out, or, Brett and I would be, I don't know.
Well, I mean, even the simple things. Like, I know you're trying to think of specifics right now, but even simple things like sitting down and watching a movie.
Mm-hmm.
Those were things when you were, 3, you could do, but...
And Ethan would be, like, creating characters to add in the story instead of just watching the movie.
Or stimming and not able to sit still. And so then here you are as the little brother, and say we were having movie time with some of your friends over. Like, how did that make you feel? And Brett mentioned he went through phases of embarrassment, and then he would feel shame because he was embarrassed. But he was older. So no matter what, he was supposed to be more advanced than his little brother.
Yeah.
But you were little. And then you'd also have to explain that to your friends who were young too. So can you talk about that a little bit?
Oh, it was definitely difficult, and I would feel embarrassed all the time. I know a while ago, my friends and I, we went to go watch a movie, and we invited Ethan. And yeah, we'd just be sitting in our seats watching the movie. Ethan would be making noises. He'd be stemming, moving a lot. And Ethan, like, if something scary or loud were to happen, he'd jump or like grunt, and people would look at us, and that would get a little embarrassing.
And then you'd have to explain it.
Yeah, I would. It's.
But both of you and your brother Brett, you're both very blessed in the fact that you have amazing friends. You have friends that are kind-hearted and that do things like, now that you're a junior in high school, your friends will sometimes include your older brother. But what I was asking about was when you were little, trying to explain Ethan to your friends. What was that like?
It was, I'm trying to think of like how I would word this. It was I'm trying to think.
Yeah.
Like trying to explain how Ethan was acting different. It was, at the time I didn't know, so I just say, like, he's different, he's got autism, I don't know how to explain it, so that's how I would explain it to my friends. So that's how, like, if Ethan did something, they'd be like, oh, he just has autism, and that's why he's acting so different, because at the time I couldn't explain like I could now to them.
Yeah. So you just had to deal with it. Yeah. And I'm sure that stunk on a lot of levels.
Yeah.
Yeah. But now your friends, because they've been around forever, are just familiar with Ethan. So just kind of sticking it out and sticking with that core group of friends has helped. And you mentioned off camera before we got started that you have even a little different experience than your brother did, because one of your best friends has a brother with autism. So how does that help you? At least you have a bond like that with somebody.
It's I mean, with my friend and his brother is it's completely different. He acts way different from Ethan, where Ethan will be stemmy, or his instant reaction to anything is instant anger. My friend's brother, he is very quiet, very easygoing. He likes to sit in his room, play like his Nintendo Switch or his Xbox or whatever. He's very to himself and not like as noticeable as Ethan would be. Like if you were to put them in a crowd, my brother's friend would seem normal because he would just be quiet to himself, but Ethan would be covering his eyes, making the noises he makes, stomping, and it's just crazy the different level that my friend's brother has compared to Ethan on the spectrum. And it's...
But is it nice to have a best friend who has that understanding and like, I've been there. Great. Yeah.
It's great.
So I also want to ask you a little bit about when you were a baby, because when Ethan was diagnosed, Brett was a toddler. When Ethan was diagnosed, you were a tiny baby.
I was a tiny baby.
Just born. And So we've talked about this a lot your whole life growing up, but you can share this, and again, you don't have to worry about hurting my feelings, but I have often said that one of my biggest regrets in my whole life to this point is the fact that when Ethan was diagnosed, you were a newborn, because I didn't really get to bond with you as a newborn the way I did with your brothers, because I went into the mode of taking care of and moving forward with Ethan. So you were really taken care of by your daddy when you were a baby. Do you want to talk about that at all a little bit?
Yeah, I feel like in most parental cases, it's always the kids are with their mom, and it was different because I would see my friends who would spend all their time with their mom and dad, whereas it was me, Brett, and my dad, and mom had Ethan. Mom was helping Ethan, taking care of Ethan, and my dad would be with us more than my mom was, and it was weird, and I was kind of jealous not having like the same relationship with my mom as like my friends did with their moms, because my mom would just be with Ethan 24/7, whether he was with speech therapy or just simple stuff. It was
Yeah.
It was hard.
Well, because even when we tried to make time at home, there was always a behavior or an interruption.
And you would have to take care of
Ethan. I was the one who always dealt with that. So, but I asked your brother this too. No long-term damages.
No long-term damages.
You're fine, and you and I have a very healthy bonded relationship. But we missed out on a lot of stuff with you as a baby, and I regret it just as much as you missed it.
Yeah.
And we've never had a hard time sharing that with each other. And then you get into, we're just going to move up like we did with Brett. So you get into like preschool and elementary school. And that's where we talked about how your friends didn't understand your brother like at all. And we always talk about how we created the most spoiled monster out of you, because we took you to all the therapies. And what we did to keep you quiet behind the two-way glass was we bought you something.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Heck yeah.
Every time we went somewhere, we would buy you something. And that was out of guilt, and it was out of entertainment, and it was...
to keep me quiet.
It was a lot of different things. But that was actually very hard for you to outgrow, because one day we stopped doing that, and you were like, what the heck?
Oh, yeah. I was very, very spoiled.
Do you remember those times where we would... take you and you would just spend hours sitting behind the two-way glass and sitting at therapies and things like that? What was that like?
It was, so we would go to the therapies and mom would get me, I don't know, like she'd get me a candy bar from like the gift shop downstairs and maybe like a little toy. So it was, I would go in, mom would either have it or go and get it and come back with it, and I would just have it there. And it wasn't, and mom would just be focusing on Ethan, and same with my dad. And if it were Brett and I would just be going down the slide, or like I remember one time there was a little car, and Brett and I were pushing it around, but my mom told us to stop so she could listen to what she was talking to Ethan about. And I didn't know at the time because I was a little kid, and I thought, this is so unfair. I'm just trying to have fun in this little box, and you're restricting me from that. Yeah.
Oh, I remember that. I do. Oh, this is kind of hard to hear, but this is what it is. So, yeah, I did, and you get blinded as a parent. And again, that's another reason why I'm doing this, so other parents can listen. Because looking back, how hard would it have been for me to just let go of some of the control and let dad go to a session? But I knew that everything that was happening there was going to affect him for the rest of his life. So yeah, therapy time, it was, your brother mentioned it was hard on him too, because he just felt like there was no focus on him.
Yeah, the focus was on Ethan because that was the whole point of the therapy.
It's all consuming.
When you would bring us along, it's just, hey, you guys do this, but make sure you're quiet. Don't be loud. Don't leave.
Yeah, you couldn't leave because I had to watch you.
Mm-hmm.
And your dad, also, to be fair, he worked so many hours and odd hours and swing shifts, and so oftentimes having him wasn't an option. But Gigi was always very involved in Podgy and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So, but then we had several years of your life where you were sick. And you had your tumors, and that was probably a good 3 years of you being sick.
Straight surgery after surgery.
Yeah, Garrett had 8 tumors in 18 months, and they were all benign, but they were invasive, and they were all in his arm, and he had to have a lot of surgeries. He had to spend a lot of time in the hospital. And that was terrifying. And at the same time where you needed very critical levels of care, so did your brother. And so how do you think we did with that sharing?
I was there and just said, I almost forgot about that.
Yeah, no, don't forget about that.
Yeah, it would, most of the time, whenever the family would come in the room to see me, Mom again was with Ethan, making sure Ethan was almost like me when he was in therapy, making sure he was quiet, but this time Mom had the focus on me. And whenever Ethan was STEMmy or like too loud or just needed to walk, my mom would go with him. So it was, my dad would take care of me, Gigi, Podge, Grandma Margaret, they would come and bring me stuff, and that added to the spoiledness.
Yeah. But we did do a lot of, that is where we kind of, we did a lot of letting go of Ethan during that time. We could leave him with Gigi, because Gigi could take care of him.
And then it would just be you and Dad.
Yeah.
And I had the focus.
Yeah.
Because Ethan was with Brett, Gigi, and Podge doing who knows what.
Yeah. But recovery time at home, because Ethan always smothered you. He always wanted to be your big brother and have this baby brother. Yeah.
He had what every other older brother does. He wants to protect his little brother.
Yeah.
He just tried his best, and he did a good job. I mean, look at me.
So, yeah, we came through those years. That was kind of a wake-up call also to your dad and I as parents, where we were like, we have to get something in line in our lives to where if an emergency happens with our other kids, or God forbid one of us, that we have to be able to move forward with it. So there's where we open the doors to
Ethan's rules
and in-home therapy. And thank the Lord for Meredith. Meredith Holland, who came, and I will use her name because A, she won't care, and B, she deserves the credit, but she came into our lives and is like family. And if you can find an in-home care provider that can come in, that you can trust and loves your kids,
it's Meredith.
It's a godsend. So we open up and we let go a little, and we have all these extra therapies, but then it opens the door to some of the therapists analyzing you. Do you remember this?
Oh my, yes.
Yeah. What was that like?
It was,
because you were still little. Yeah.
So there was a certain therapist, and I'm not going to say her name.
Yeah.
But she would also come into our houses, same as Meredith, and she would observe Ethan, help Ethan. But it got to the point where she would also start observing me, and I thought at the time, I'm not the one who needs the help. I don't have autism. I'm a normal kid. I don't need therapy.
Yeah.
And it was weird because she would be observing Ethan and me at the same time, but I wasn't included in the activities until we went to her office or something, and I had a coloring book, and Ethan was either in the bathroom or something, and she was just watching me color, and she goes, to my mom, you know, oh, do you see what he's doing? He's using the color blue. He's obviously very depressed, you know. The sky, like the sun's not blue. This guy's hair's not blue. Like he's obviously depressed. And my mom just goes, you know, Garrett, are you depressed? I go, no, just blue.
Yeah. So then we really were very careful on letting you be a part of, well, because this, by the way, this was play therapy. So for play therapy, that they wanted growth with the siblings, and what we tried to explain to the therapist. So this is an important point for you parents out there, is that it is truly, there's no other words for it other than it's just different. You know, your behavior and things like that with your sibling are truly just different. But she thought that you were acting like a parent and that you were depressed, and I remember telling her, this is how our family works. We all have to chip in. He may be a kid and his brother may be a kid, but we all have to chip in. And when I look at you now, I think it has made you better, but I don't know, because you never told me what it made you feel like when you were little. Did you feel resentment, or you clearly weren't depressed?
No, I was spoiled. What's there to be sad about? I got I wouldn't say that there was resentment, but there was definitely a form of jealousy for Brett, because he was the older brother, and it was understood that he could act like a parent because he was older. And I thought to myself, you know, hey, why isn't Brett being questioned for this? Why is it just me? Why am I the one who's basically getting questioned for doing what everybody else does? And it was definitely kind of hard on me.
Yeah. Well, listen, mistakes were made. It is not easy raising a family like ours. And again, we at least have a relationship where we can talk about it and apologize, and we have no resentments, and Ethan's better for it, and I think you and Brett are better for it. You have compassion, you have an inclusive heart, you're an excellent brother, you're a great son, and you have your independence. Now, you get to go through high school without Ethan there. Brett had to take care of Ethan during high school. I mean, he didn't. There's just a difference, and now Brett's gone. And you get to have the high school experience alone, but you have to live with your now adult autistic brother. What is that like? Especially now that, like, mom, he doesn't have the school services. He still has Bridges, but now we're doing adult transition and independent living and independent working and guardianship and finances. So now my attention has just shifted to adult stuff. So kind of explain, like, are you still stuck in that same thing, or do you think we balance it better now?
I definitely believe that it's better, well balanced. Because now I'm in high school, I don't have to worry about what Brett did, where he was protecting Ethan, making sure people liked Ethan. Because I was in high school with Ethan for 1 year, my freshman year, and he was his senior year. People didn't mess with him, people didn't make fun of him. Ethan would just go from class to class, walking through the halls, people would high-five him. And that was great to see, and not just kind of look at him funny. But now, your attention is to help Ethan transition to his adult life, like you said. And I think 5 to 7 year old me, if you were doing this now, I would feel really, really jealous that Ethan's getting all this attention all over again. But I think now that I've matured, I know Ethan needs this to actually live his own independent life, like he's been talking about. Like he wants a job. He wants his own little apartment so he can walk Gizmo to Walmart like he's wanted to. Walk around Walmart, walk around the town. It's this stuff that Ethan needs, and I know that he needs it, so I don't have any resentment or jealousy for the attention to Ethan, because I know he needs it.
Well, because even just these last 3 weeks, I have missed 3.5 solid weeks of your soccer.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about 3.5 games, 3.5 weeks of games.
Yeah.
Because we have been in therapies and it's Special Olympics season.
Special Olympics.
And I was texting one of the moms just yesterday who was giving you rides, and I was like, I feel so bad. But it doesn't seem to affect you now at 16 the way it did at 6. But it still affects my heart. It hurts my heart that I can't.
And I see that. Like, because
my other adult son is living his own life and doing his own thing. And I still, after all these years, we are not at a point where I can finally focus on my baby.
Yeah.
But we try to do special things, don't we?
Try.
Yeah.
It's even if it's simple stuff like going to Lawrence. Either I'm busy, I have conditioning in the morning, and I'm tired. I don't wake up, which happens a lot. A lot.
Yeah.
I've got work in a couple hours, and we need to be in Lawrence for more than I need. And it just comes down to I'm transitioning into my adult life. Same with Ethan, and Ethan is still able to go to Lawrence with mom, countless hours at her office with mom, and I'm at home sleeping or ready to go to work. And it's a definite change from being little to watch Ethan get this attention and think, I need attention, I want the attention, to me sitting at home and now Ethan is still getting the attention, but this time I'm like, yeah, I know he needs this. I know mom needs to be with him more than she needs me right now because Ethan is transitioning.
Right.
And he definitely needs the support, and it's great that he has it.
Yeah, yeah. And like I've said, and I've preached it before, I think that you are a better person because of your brother, and your brother is a well-advanced, pretty well-rounded adult now with autism because the sacrifices that you as a little kid and your older brother had to make, the sacrifices that were forced on you. But I think, again, like I mentioned to your brother, that now that I'm getting into some public speaking and reaching out in that area, I think it's important for us to share our journey and for people to see that it straight was awful and it straight stunk for a long time. But we're all here and we don't hold resentment towards each other. And even though you and I missed some really important time as mommy and baby, we're pretty stinking bonded.
Heck yeah.
Like, you're kind of a mama's boy. You're bigger daddy's boy, but that you have no harm, A, and B, you have no resentment or hatred towards your brother. You love him in a way that's pretty darn special.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm still willing to take him places. Like, if another Marvel movie comes out, I'll ask Ethan, hey Ethan, you want to go watch this movie with me and my friends? Or, you know, we're going out to eat, and I'm like, Ethan, you want to come with us? You know, we're going to go to McDonald's, and you got money now, so you can buy whatever you want. And it's,
yeah.
It's definitely a great bond between Ethan and I wouldn't change it.
Yeah. And so is it easier or harder having Brett out of the house and now it's just you? It's
definitely a lot harder. With Brett, because I can't drive places, it just comes down to me scheduling the time with my friends, and if Ethan even wants to go, he comes.
Yeah.
But I've felt that Brett and Ethan have had a better bond than me and Ethan together, because Ethan and I get under each other's skin a lot, and I feel like that does kind of take a toll on me and him especially.
Yeah.
And I can't just like drive to Lawrence and have Ethan come with me. I can take him to the pool, but I can't go to Mash Street, get Mash Street soda and say, okay Ethan, we're gonna go to McDonald's now. It's just,
yeah,
it's kind of hard.
But you'll get there. It's just because you just have a few more hours to go before that license is not restricted. But I see what you're saying, and we even still do have times where and then I come back and apologize to you, but I look at you and I'm like, gosh, Garrett, why? You knew that saying that one word would set him off. And you will say, because it wasn't fair.
Yeah.
And I still find myself catching the point, like, I don't see, okay, you're right, it wasn't fair, and Ethan shouldn't have done that. I'm more like, oh my gosh, Garrett, you knew that reaction would set off a 2-hour chain of event. Why can't you just deal with it? And I still catch myself doing that to you, and that has to stink for you. But we always end up catching up with each other within a couple of minutes and talking about it.
Well, if it's something simple, like I'll just ask Ethan, Ethan, can you do this for me?
Yeah.
Why do I always have to do stuff for you? It's like, Ethan, I'm just asking you to do this. And then he's in a pissy mood for the rest of the day.
Yeah.
And
part of that's because he's adjusting to he is 18 and he doesn't want his little brother telling him what to do.
And I understand that. But
and so we need to reword our language, and we're working on that. Like when I say, Ethan, go pick up your shoes, and he says, don't tell me what to do, I'm 18. We have to reword our language to add the word can that way it's like a question, and we're not telling him. So what is the question? How has all this benefited you?
I feel like it's definitely made me a lot wiser when it comes to stuff now with Ethan, because I know what sets him off. I may still do it sometimes, but I know I can try and prevent it. And it's definitely, I feel like, made me a better brother just in general when it comes to whenever Ethan and I hang out. And I can't even explain to like the change I've had when it comes to Ethan and I and how we've grown together.
Oh, that's so sweet, Care Bear. What about just you as an individual, though?
I would say definitely more caring. I'm willing to listen and try and understand what other people go through, and I feel like I've become a better person.
You're a great kid. I am a very, very lucky mom. You guys are great kids, and there is something to be said that happens when you have a sibling with autism, and it's like one day a switch goes off from it being super hard to something truly, truly special and magical that's between you boys. I always have a hard time explaining it. And there's, of course, frustration mixed in at least every hour on the hour. But there's a lot of magic that happens. So I asked your brother this question. I said, now that you're older, and of course he's 20, you're still only 16. But is it easier, or is it harder, or is it just what it is?
It's honestly just what it is, but
it's
also kind of easier.
Yeah, it's easier. Are you afraid to leave home in 2 years, or are you ready? And you can be honest. Brett has enjoyed it.
I'd say it's a mix. Yeah. I'm ready to leave. I'm ready to spread my wings and do what I want to do without being restricted.
Yeah.
But it's also like, I don't want to miss this time of watching Ethan actually become an adult, and it's just a mixed combination of feelings. I'm ready to go out and pursue what I want to do in life. Yeah. And your brother was talking about how, he's going to getting married and having kids is kind of his next phase in life after college. And he's truly sad that his brother may not have that. But you just know that you guys are going to make that transition when he's Uncle Ethan, and you're always going to be part of each other's lives. And it's definitely different, because I know Ethan has all these dreams. He wants a house, kids, a loving wife, I'm sure, several animals to help. He's got a bin of toys in our garage, just for like filled with toys for his future kids.
He does. That's right. He does.
It's hard looking at that.
Oh, yeah. It's hard for me too. But you know, Garrett, I didn't know that was hard for you. But that's very hard for me as a mom. But you're right. He's got that bucket of toys that he's never gotten rid of because they're for his future kids.
Yeah.
And they're on the bottom shelf.
Bottom shelf.
In the garage.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that was hard for you. Oh. Well, you never know. You never know. He meets adults in Special Olympics, and he actually asked a girl to dance at the summer games.
Yeah,
but he was like,
that. He did the whole,
"Hey, do you want to dance with me?"
and she goes, your voice is really strange. And he's like,
"No, it's not. It's smooth."
smooth.
yeah. So he's kind of getting involved with girls a little bit. But yeah, I did not know that was hard on you. Is there anything else? I've been asking you questions, and I don't want to make it feel like I directed this at all. But is there anything else that you think you want to share with anybody, just about, again, your perspective of being a little brother, or anything at all that you want to share that maybe I didn't ask?
Definitely, again, surpassing Ethan, and when smooth. And like where Brett would help boss Ethan and help him tell him what to do, Ethan would listen, but that's because Brett is older. And then when he hears it from me, he hears me, Ethan, you can't be doing that. Or I'm like, Ethan, stop doing that. It's, don't tell me what to do. I'm older than you. I should be telling you what to do.
Right.
And it's definitely hard on me.
Yeah.
I do this to try and help Ethan, and then it's a snap back at me.
Yeah, no, that is but at least now I think Dad and I have reached that level where we're like, you know what, you're an adult, and this is just not cool. Yeah. So get yourself together, because Ethan has to make it in the real world also.
Yeah.
Has that helped you guys, that we're not coddling him as much? Because that was probably actually harming Ethan more than anything. But I fear for his life and his future in a way that I don't have to do with you and your brother.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's because you know Ethan, he may know it, but he won't do it. Like, he may know I can't do this, but he'll still do it just because it's a reaction that he's lived with since he was born and diagnosed. And it's hard to like implant something new. Like if a dog poops it's on the floor, and instead of just like rubbing his nose in it, he may hit him a little too hard and put him in the kennel, instead of rubbing his nose, tell him he's a bad boy and then put him in the kennel. He may pat the dog a little too hard, and that's
a good example. Another example would be that his and I try to explain to everybody, he could be in the best mood. He could have just opened 15 Christmas presents that matched his list exactly, and he could be on cloud 9, but he could be talking to you with an angry voice and an angry look on your face, but he's happy. And so that's something that we work on too. That's something you've had to explain to people your whole life. So yeah, what do you think? We went through, we answered any questions that were up there, unless any more have popped up.
No.
You think you're done? You think you've covered everything?
To all like the younger siblings out there, if it's hard now, it gets easier. You just have to understand what your brother is going through, or sister. You just need to know that all of this pays off in the end. You need to know, with my mom and Ethan, she's helping him prepare his life so he can live a life like you. And you just need to understand. You can't hold that against your mom, your dad, or your sibling. You just can't hold it against them.
Yeah. and feel comfortable enough to tell them.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I will tell you one thing, you have always had a very strong will, and you have always, we said from like the second you were one, we were like, he's going to be our first kid with a broken bone. You just have never had any fear. So you have always called Dad and I out on like, hey, I need time too, and I need this, or I want to watch this movie. Can you just make him go somewhere else? And
or make him sit down and watch it.
yeah, well, which wasn't, you couldn't just make him sit for 2 hours. But we learned to give you a voice also, you know, and not that you didn't have one, but we gave you like affirmation of your voice, because it was the only way that we could survive, and have you survive growing up in this house too, and giving you time for things like your soccer and your video and your art. When you were little, you were into art. So would you encourage kids to not be afraid to speak to their parents?
Don't be afraid to talk to mom and dad. You know that they love you just as much as they love your siblings. They love you with all your heart. You just need to be able to talk to them.
Yeah.
Loved hearing your point of view, Garrett. I met you as a tiny guy in a stroller and love seeing you now as an almost gulp adult.
Oh, yeah. Well, Meredith, we're going to do a session just for you because you deserve it. Probably a two-parter, but...
Two-parter.
Yeah. Okay, so I think that we don't like to have the videos go too long, but if they have questions, they can leave them in the comments, right, and you'll answer them.
I'll answer them if you tell me. I'm not a Facebook guy.
Yeah. Okay, so if you're watching the replay, again, thank you for being a replay viewer, but if you have questions, put them in the comments. I will get notified, and then I will
have me respond.
Have Garrett respond. Because these words and this whole session is to be his point of view, so nothing will be coming directly from me. But I think you did a good job.
I think I did too.
Yeah, I learned some things I didn't know. So, but that's the whole point of it. And, all right, I love you, babe.
Love you too, huh?
Okay, guys, we are signing off. Thank you for tuning in.
Bye, guys.